Then,
That's not Ukrainian?
that's day.
Tendaberry, longa-metragem da cineasta Hayley Elizabeth Anderson, teve uma estreia badaladíssima durante o Festival de Sundance 2024. No filme, a gente acompanha a vida de Dakota, que vive em Nova York no pós-pandemia. No seu longa de estreia, a cineasta explora diversas formas de se contar uma história. O filme já está disponível na plataforma MUBI e a gente teve uma conversa muito bacana com a cineasta, então confere aí.
Before we talk about the movie, I would like you to talk about yourself a little bit, if you may, please, because I know you had acting classes before you start to writing and directing, so I want to try to understand a little bit of this process.
Yeah, well, I'm from Texas. I'm not from New York. Originally, I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. I went to film school. I did study theater. I tried acting in theater, and my voice just wasn't loud enough. So I switched over to playwriting and worked in casting. So I think working in casting and I had casted was helping cast like as an intern, Terrence Malick project, and the casting director really took me under her wing. And I think from that process, that's how I shaped my own directing, practice. Because I was very shy, it helped me to open up to people and gave me an excuse to talk to people. I think that's what I took from that experience, is just like how important the people are. Yes, the script is important and everything, but I really take my inspiration from just the people that are, down your street or, in your community. And sometimes I'll walk down the street and I'm like, every person that I'm seeing is very interesting, and I'm so interested in what their life might be like, which I think is more of like a documentary type thought. But sometimes, even with casting, like you see a face or you sense somebody's like spirit, and you're like, they would make a really great actor, even if it's reenacting their own life.
I think it's wonderful that you said about this process, this casting process, because it was exactly what happens here in Tendaberry, right? With Kota.
The casting process, well, I met Kota on the train in 2018. This is how I meet like a lot of the people that are in my shorts. Some of them are in Tendaberry. Like Megan was in a short and I met her in a park. Janice, who plays her store manager, I also met her on the train years ago. So I love meeting, like casting people that I've met on the train. And of course, we worked with a wonderful casting director named Kate Antonini, who also street casts a lot of the characters. Like
I think all is connected, like, it makes this process more human. I think this story is kind of movie, the type of movie that makes us, or, better say, invite us as audience, to breathe along. We inhale and exhale and hold our breath along with Dakota. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the process of writing, this kind of movie that respects this own time.
Yeah, it was always sort of my goal to keep it very present, to keep it feeling like it was shot in real time. That's how I sort of see when I'm writing. That's how I see things. I see it very present. I've worked on docs before, so I think it might also come from that. I don't like knowing anything before the character knows it. I don't like feeling myself as a director in the film as much as possible. Of course, like there are times when you have to do things that are just in the rules of cinema. And so the writing process was an ongoing one. We changed a lot. At the beginning, it was just an outline, an outline of vignettes and happenings that were inspired by the people around my neighborhood and sort of things I had seen on the street when I was like back in school. And then it became just the story of Dakota and her survival. And it was always our goal to change the film based on what is happening in the real world, so that we're not in a fantasy space. Like we always had to recognize that COVID was a thing. And you can see in the beginning of the film, people wearing masks. Like I didn't want it to feel like we were ignoring what was happening in the real world. And originally we were supposed to film over a year. It ended up being 3 years. And originally, like Yuri was supposed to go back to Ukraine, and then she was going to have a baby and he would disappear. But it had nothing to do with like a war situation or anything. So when we filmed him going back to Ukraine, the war broke out, and it was a really tough decision because it was so present and it was an ongoing thing that was unfolding, and writing was continued onto like the last day like of filming. Also, but I wasn't concerned in a way where it wouldn't feel timeless, because I wanted it to feel very present. Like I wanted it to feel like 2022, 23 of when we were shooting, because like the films in the 70s, when you look back at them, you can see exactly what the world was back then, because they were shooting on the street, guerrilla style. You can see the people and how they dressed. Usually those were real people. So in the same way, I wanted to just capture what South Brooklyn was now. In the film, I wasn't really worried about it feeling sort of stuck in time. That was sort of the goal, for it to feel like a time capsule in a way.
I think our time is ending, so I could not leave you without talking about that mix of language that I said before. We have 4K, what we call in here in Brazil Super 8, and analogs.
The layers, well, the looks sort of reflect those layers of time. I started out wanting to shoot this project on these like 16 DV tapes that I had. And then my producers were like, it would look better on 16. I was like, fine, fine. So I'll just film other stuff on these DV tapes. So those layers were already sort of there. And then as we filmed, it became like we ran out of money to shoot on film on the last chapter. So I was like, it's a perfect time to shoot this on a digital camera. And we were sort of thinking about shooting on a camera that just wasn't as cinematic as the others. We ended up using an Alexa, but I think in the beginning there were some thoughts of like, why can't this chapter should just feel completely different from the one before it, because the world has changed, she has changed, and it should feel real. I think in 16 there's still sort of like a distance that you have with the image. It still feels like a movie. It still feels something that you can't touch. It feels created. But I think when you're shooting digitally, the image looks a little bit more real. So I wanted to feel like we were now more in like the real world when we switched to digital. And yeah, and all the layers, again, it was that idea of trying to talk about things that were bigger than you. And that was the only way, like by layering that archival and all of that footage, it was the only way to feel the size of time, and to capture that feeling of feeling small in the face of time and in the face of a huge city. So yeah, that's where some of it came from. My name's Haley Elizabeth Anderson. I'm the director of Tendaberry, which is now available on Mubi. And yeah, please watch our movie. We hope you enjoy it.